Good day, everyone, and welcome to the Medium's Porch. I am your host, Kathleen Boldt, and we are here again today to bring you the process, privilege, and power of spirit communication. And we have a special guest with us today, and she is from Canada, and her name is Monique Painchaud. Hello, Monique.
Hello, Kathleen. Hello, everybody.
Yes, and I'm bringing you Monique, as she is a professional artist and psychic medium. She works with evidence in her mediumship. She does portraiture. She does spirit portraiture with her evidential mediumship. She uncovers messages through clairvoyance and channeling. And using these modalities, she will offer loving messages and guidance from spirit and your personal guides regarding issues of past, present, and future. As a spirit portrait artist, she is also providing sketch portraits of loved ones during her readings in person or in public demonstrations, which are of extra evidence that the ones we know and love are always around us. So that is something that is really important to us, Monique, to have you here to continue to help us understand the process that different mediums go through, international global mediums, as you yourself, as I said, are from Canada. Tell us a little bit about what calls you to mediumship again and again. Tell us your story. Go ahead.
Okay, well, yes, well, since I could hold a pencil, I've been an artist, and that's what I did as a career. I did television news, computer graphics, computer animation, special effects, um, and a lot of court illustration across Canada as well. Uh, the court system does not allow cameras, so they often hire people like me to draw portraitures in court. And I did that in Toronto, Winnipeg, Vancouver. Vancouver is where I am now. I worked for Global Television News for 26 years there. And yeah, in fact, I didn't even know really what a medium was. My background was as an artist. It wasn't until the death of my father and brother. I have two brothers that have passed, and a father. Brother and father, 5 months apart, had passed away, and I had what's commonly known as a spiritual awakening or spiritual transformational experience, where they actually showed up in my living room. Father first, and then a day or two later, brother, and it changed my life forever. Um, yeah,
How did that feel? That was your first encounter with spirit in that very tangible way. Is that right?
yes, I've experienced paranormal throughout my life as a child, but to have my family come through like that, and I'll tell you, these experiences are so profound. Um, I could only imagine they were meant to be, honestly. My father showed up in my living room. I was just putting furniture away. I had company. And we had drinks and a bite to eat on the patio. And as I'm walking through the living room with one of the chairs, I put down and something told me to brace onto the coffee table for some reason. And at that very moment, I felt for the first time in my life a profound feeling of essence, Father's essence. So strong indeed was it that the tears were coming from my eyes. And even though he was behind me, I could still see him. Uh, well, I I thought to myself, I'm going to turn around and see what he looks like, to actually see him, because my father had passed. With my third eye, which I had no idea what these things were, I could see that he was a brilliant light, massive light, multicolored like a rainbow or like a prism. And as I had this, I didn't even finish the thought. Faster than the speed of thought, I wanted to turn around and see him just like that. He had, I'm presuming it was him. I ended up in a void, a dark void. I'd left my body and I was in this void floating there quite comfortably. The odd feeling of actually it feeling familiar, it was oddly familiar. I wasn't scared. I knew I didn't have my body and I was quite fine with that. I could see everything, yet there was nothing to see. And when I mean everything, I mean infinitely and completely around me, 360. I could see everything. So as I can only use the word floated there quite comfortably. What shocked me next was my dad spoke to me through well, they call it telepathy, but I describe it as a vibration that affected everything in my body if I had a body, but I guess in my soul, that's how the information came through. Um, and he instructed me, do not leave your sister. That was the message. I had a sister who was still living. And I was so shocked I didn't answer him. I was just so shocked that, I mean, my father had passed. How could he be speaking to me? But he said it again to get my attention, and more sternly this time. Yeah. So I knew to answer him, being the good daughter I was. It was a knee-jerk response. I said, okay, Dad. And the next thing he said to me as he faded away, and I could describe this feeling as just floating in water, like he was swimming away from me. It was warm, it was comfortable, I was being held. And as he faded away, and I didn't see him, by the way, but I heard him and I felt him. He said, everything is going to be okay. And to this day, I believe that that's true for all of us. So
That from that experience of the whole body taking that information in as a holistic intelligence, we believe it, don't we?
yeah.
I mean, it's not just an intellectual thought, it's an experience of everything being okay, right?
Yes, it is. And in fact, mediumship, everyone is different, but um, when I came back from that experience, it's like after he said that, I was in my body just like that. It all happened in a millisecond. So I actually experienced timelessness. And after that, time feels oddly not there. I mean, obviously we follow time. There's a clock on the wall. I could see what time it is, but it moves a lot faster for me now. And the same thing happened to me about a day later. My brother came through in the same way. He had drowned 20 years earlier. I hadn't talked to him in 20 years, but the same way. I was sitting in my couch, ready to relax for the evening, and he came through, and I felt his essence behind me in the same way. Now, at that time, I still didn't know what telepathy was. I still didn't know what was happening to me, but I was aware that it was about to happen again. And this time, I wanted my brother Roger to know that I was aware he was there. So I tried to say his name, Roger. I only got halfway through his name. I couldn't get through his whole name, and then bam.
Like you're in mud, right? You're slow
I
shooting.
tried. Yeah, I couldn't get halfway, and then there I was. This time it was different. I was sitting in his truck. He made me go through two experiences in our lifetime while he was alive. And and there was a message behind that. Sitting in his truck, watching him drive, just like I'm talking to you now. It was unbelievable. And then another moment in time when we were on the phone together. And when I came back, I knew what the message was. Boom, just like that, back in my chair. So these experiences are what, well, you hear near-death experiences that people pass and they come back with gifts. I believe that's what happened to me, because when I came back, um, well, I was guided into mediumship with spirit. I was guided, and I was shown who I was going to say but I'll correct that by saying we really are, because as I experienced those moments in time, like my father, for example, that at that moment I went out to my balcony in shock, um, trying to understand what just happened to me. And as I'm sitting there on my balcony, something within me had split. I could, it was my ego that somehow separated. I could hear it. I could hear a voice talking to me, um, not understanding that it was my own ego. And I recognized through that experience that we all have egos, of course, and we think that the voice in our head is who we are, which if you've evolved spiritually, if you're become awakened or aware or conscious, you recognize that that voice is really not you, but it's something that you learned. And at that time, it was trying to convince me that I was going insane. And at the same time, I could feel myself, hear myself argue with it, that voice saying, no, that was real. That was real. So I learned a lot about myself experiencing that. And the next second, I looked down. I was sitting with my body on my balcony, and I saw this bright light. It would have been with my third eye, because everything was, nothing was tangible. It was all experiential. This light exploded from within me, out from within me. I would imagine through here, my abdomen area. That's what it felt like. I looked or sensed it was coming from there. I remember looking down, and boom, that light was everything. It made up everything, but yet it was nothing at all. It's really hard to find the words to explain these experiences, but um, at that very second, and by the way, everything happened all at once on that patio, even though there was a sequence of events as I'm explaining it to you. As I'm observing that light, being conscious of that light, I hear a voice that sounds exactly like me, yet I'm not using my mouth to say it. It must have been my higher self that exclaimed in excitement, "That's me!" So I had become awakened to my own light, to
Yeah.
to what I was, who and what I was. Yeah, it was absolutely fascinating. Um, so there's more still, but I definitely want to get out there. And after that, I woke up the next. I don't remember what happened after that. I remember waking up in my bed. How I got there, I don't know. But the adventure started from there, because I knew upon awakening that I was meant to do something. I had to do something. I was here for a reason. And I was obsessed with that, I have to say. And I used to cry myself to sleep at night, begging this newfound energy, this energy source, this God source energy, that I now became aware of, that there was indeed something much bigger than me. And um, I was meant to do something with that knowledge. And um, not so coincidental coincidences started to happen. Synchronicities, they call it. Yeah,
What a powerful series of experiences. And I know a lot of our listeners will be able to have their own version of that awakening moment. You know, there's a lot of us out there that have had those moments. And I love the common theme that I've heard before line up with what you're telling me too, that spirit brings us into a place of no time, but also a place of expanded perspective where our perceptions are now expanded and beyond one layer, right? So you now know from that experience that there's parts of yourselves, kind of like a diamond, right? That you have different facets. You can see yourself, you can observe yourself. And like you said, with, spiritual practices, that's what we start to do. We start to recognize that the self is really not us, and it's the no self that is the self. And of course, it becomes a game of words at that point. But there's, the no time is the true time, but then time isn't there. So it's quite a lovely little mess of head games you can play with that. But what you said, I think, is critical about this, that others can relate to, is that experience is there. The experience tells you the truth, not the head, not the thoughts, but the experience that you're having puts you in the center of truth. And I love how you've explained that to us. Thank you for sharing your story with us. It's very nice of you. Yeah.
And I agree with you, because I started to, after that, of course, only through that experience, that I started to recognize it in others that were, coming to me for readings years later. But I would recognize and feel that they were in the same place at that time, not understanding, afraid, not being able to go back to the life they had, their life falling apart, not understanding why, thinking that they might be going crazy. You know, it's very common after something like that, an experience like that, like I went through. And you're right, some people have a Kundalini awakening, others may have passed and come back, a near-death experience, you know. There's many ways where people would experience something like that and then suddenly become conscious.
And then not to know what to do with it too. Like in your case, like you were saying, you went to bed at night, you knew there was something more, but you knew there was a call. And that's what I think I was referring to in the beginning, that most of us get this feeling of, I'm here to do something with, about, or for this, whatever this is that I don't yet understand. And
That's
so
right.
that's where you went from there. I mean, with all at this point now, let me ask you, you've already been the court reporter, you've already, or not reporter, sorry, the portrait illustrator in the court. You're already doing graphic design. Am I right about that? When this happened, you've already had that past behind you.
Correct. I was, well,
How did it transfer? How did you make the transition?
transfer forward. Yeah, it's quite interesting because that's why I feel this was always meant to be. And some people believe that you plan your life. We plan our life before we come here. So I didn't know that my art was to be integrated with this newfound ability to see spirit. In fact, I didn't know yet that I could see spirit. I was other than my two family members, that was much more than seeing or hearing. That was a paranormal experience, you know, where I actually ended up in another dimension, and it changed me when I got back. But synchronicity is what led me to a spiritualist church. I started searching for what it was that I was supposed to do. I did try to go back to my old life, and I just couldn't do it. That God source energy, they made sure of it. Every time I went into the wrong direction, I'd go through, you know, pain, frustration, uh, not successful, various events that actually made me think, maybe I'm not supposed to do this. But when I go in this direction, meaning mediumship, when I go in this direction, oh my God, I feel wonderful. I feel ecstatic. I feel energized. That must be the way I'm supposed to go. But how am I going to pay my mortgage? How am I going, how am I going to survive? How, you know, I still have a mortgage to pay. I still have to make a living. So I had to go with it. I had no choice. I mean, I tried to go back to my life and I couldn't do it. So it was another medium had phoned me up and called me. She was keeping tabs on me because she knew what I had gone through. I actually went to a psychologist to make sure that I wasn't going crazy, and the psychologist pulled a business card out of her drawer and said, "This is not my forte. Go see this very expensive medium," which I did. And that medium, she had been doing it for 40 years. She validated everything I went through. So she phoned me every so often to make, because she knew what I was about to go through, the journey I was on. She said, "It's not easy, Monique." So she was right. And Father came through her in a reading and said, "Don't worry about the money. He's going to take care of the money. Just keep doing what you're doing." And in fact, family member after family member would come through other mediums telling me exactly the same thing. Keep doing what it was like they were coaching me on, you know? So it was very helpful. But this new way of perceiving reality, really, I had to figure out a way to live like that, to integrate that into my daily life, because all of a sudden now I know that none of this is really real, you know, that this our bodies are not who we are. So it took some time, a long time actually, months, you know, months and months, close to a year to finally um, feel present, feel grounded, feel that start to understand that was to use this knowledge, this awareness here on this dimension, on this planet somehow. And synchronicity brought me to a spiritualist church. Now I was born and raised Roman Catholic, so they didn't want anything to do with this.
Very different
Very different. But that's where I saw the mediums on platform.
Okay.
And for the first time I volunteered to go up there. Really, I was hoping that they would they would help me to go back to the way I was, because when you're going through a spiritual transformational experience, when you're going through what some people call the dark night of the soul, because when you go through an experience like that, everything that you used to believe, your old patterns, your beliefs, they start to dissipate, they start to drop off. And that's difficult. It's frightening because you don't know where you're going from there. There's only the unknown is where you're being led to, the unknown. And yeah, letting go of the things that you always felt kept you safe here. And so I did that slowly, and it brought me to that church, and I saw for the first time a complete stranger. And at the end of that class, the minister was teaching a class in mediumship. That's why I was there. So, I mean, I saw that guy as plain as day with my third eye there. He was standing, and one of the mediums took it. It was her brother. Then I realized, oh my God, this is a real thing. And I can see strangers, not just my family. And not only that, I'm supposed to tell people what I'm seeing. I'm supposed to tell them what I'm seeing. I was given permission to say something. So at the end of the class, I ran into the minister's shop. Everybody was packing up. I was in her office, and I was so excited, jumping up and down, hitting the ceiling. I said, Anne, you don't know me. I said, but I'm a very strong artist. I said, you want me to describe to you what I'm seeing? I can draw it for you. She said, really? I said, yes, I'm a professional court illustrator. That's what I do. I said, I'll draw them for you. And she says, well, I'm having another class next month. Come back with a drawing pad. And I did. And that's where the spirit portrait art started, in that class, the very day. I drew, she told me she wanted me to draw what the other mediums were seeing on platform. Well, I didn't know if I could do that. But I thought, hey, the only thing I know for sure now is that I don't know anything at all, which is, yeah, which is,
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah. It's like, what?
yeah, if you can get to that point in your life, that leaves you wide open to receiving more, right? And that's exactly what happened. I put my pencil down to the pad, and that energy just, all I can explain is I felt my body just expand like it was inside of me. I had to breathe so deeply. I felt my lungs were full, and I didn't see. I was still trying to understand what was going on with this mediumship, because I didn't even realize I wasn't seeing them with my eyes. I was seeing them with my third eye. So I couldn't see any spirit, like I presume the court illustrator stands waiting to see somebody. So all I did was I put the pencil down to paper and started to doodle, and within minutes somebody, there was a sketch of a sister.
It's so fabulous. I mean, spirit was teaching you as they were working with you. They were showing you that process unfolding as you unfolded it. And I love that. And I love that, you're trusting spirit, and because you already had all the, shall we call them, chops, right? All the skills and the experience of seeing 1,000 different eyes and 1,000 different noses and 1,000 different lips, it would give so much material and information to spirit to work with, that they just needed to activate that awareness within you so your physical body could respond in accord. And I think that's fascinating, that process and how that works. So
Very much.
you were seeing them with your naked eye, you were seeing them with that internal vision from the third eye. That's correct?
Yes, and because I didn't understand that when I first started doing spirit portraits, uh, I could see them with my eyes closed. I knew that. So I was drawing with my eyes closed, which really blew people's minds. And that serves as evidence that I actually wasn't doing the drawing. How could, I mean, I
Right.
wasn't using my eyes. So that's how I started. But over time, I learned in experience that I could actually see them with my eyes open. And then as I practiced doing that, I realized that I could actually incorporate, because my eyes were open, I could actually incorporate my skill as an artist. Oh, okay, the nose is a bit too broad. Like technically speaking, as an artist. Well, oh, the ears are too big, or, you know, I'd adjust the eyes. So I started to incorporate my skills as an artist, working with that energy. And the challenge there is, and that's why, you know, if you ever go to places like Arthur Findlay College or take classes in spirit portrait art, you'll often be told to start doing it with your left hand, because it's very difficult for anyone, including an artist, to release control enough so that that energy can flow through you.
Right.
You know, as a human being, you're tempted to keep control over what you're doing. So that's why with the left hand, obviously you have far left. If you're right hand dominated, you use your left, then it's far less, you can't keep as much control as you normally would, and therefore allowing that energy to flow through you a little bit more easily. That's how you learn to release control. So I stuck to my right hand, however, and that God source energy worked with me. We actually worked together as a team. When you know, in fact, an epiphany for me was, and this applies to everyone as far as I'm concerned, I always thought during that period, up to that moment where I had an epiphany, I thought I was working for them. But there was a point in my life in my practice at that time where I realized I'm not working for them. I'm working with them. We're working as a team to help others, you know, and I was overwhelmed by this feeling of love, and it stuck with me for a couple, you know, a few days. Just overwhelming love, in recognition to help me to understand that, yes, you've got it, that's true. And so I continued to do that, working with them. And there is a them, I know that there's several. I'm not sure who takes control of the drawing, but I can feel them working through me. Now, over the years of practicing this, we have developed a technique, a way to work together. And it's evolved over time. So many mediums and trance mediums, they call it a semi-trance. So I kind of go in, I actually become the drawing, and I can feel the essence of the person in the drawing, in particular with the eyes, which is where I start. And it's gotten to the point now where as I'm drawing, they actually instruct me how to draw. You know, I'll get to an ear, for example, and suddenly I feel there's a hearing aid in that ear. Or I'll actually internally hear them going, no, less wrinkles. They'll stop me from drawing wrinkles on the face, because one elderly lady much preferred to be portrayed as a younger woman. And they often
Want me more wrinkles.
I could feel it. Don't do it, or don't erase this line. That's a scar. Or you know, that becomes evidence. It evolves even further than that, where as I'm drawing, they'll not only talk to me, but they'll show me a wheelchair, or I'll feel this woman was in full care home. It happened to me actually a few weeks ago, where I was in a group practicing, and this elderly lady come through, and at the end of the I drew her. It was a good drawing, but at the end of the mediumship, I got lost. I couldn't understand what was going on. I was seeing things in my third eye that I didn't understand, people, things, very confused. It wasn't until the recipient of the reading informed me that she had died of Alzheimer's, and that's why you were so confused. And yes, she was in a wheelchair chair, and yes, she went into full care. So these are the kinds of things that, you know, me and other mediums, I'm sure, I know that will get messages. They'll actually experience their lives themselves, or experience, let's say, anxiety, where you feel as a medium like your shoulders are going up to your earlobes. You know, you'll feel these things, and I go through that while I'm sketching. I have to say that the toughest part about spirit portrait art in demonstrations or in readings is speaking and drawing at the same time. That's hard for any artist, right? So, and it can be done, but it takes practice.
Sure.
You know, you can imagine using left brain, right brain, your you're physically drawing while you're engaging with an audience, for example, or a client. So yeah, it's a challenge, and it's practice with me in spirit. To this day, we practice this.
It sounds to me like you're actually quite immersed in the energy field of the client. Like you're looking through their eyes while you're still trying to draw them. Because I think a lot of clients or people watching a portrait artist, and I'm just thinking this, I don't have proof, I didn't do research. But I would imagine the way our minds work as humans is we're used to seeing an artist draw something, right? They're not in the process with us. So if we observe them, we're just thinking, okay, I'm looking at that, I'm copying that, I'm taking that from here, moving it over here in my awareness, and I'm just looking at it. But I love how you've explained it's not about looking at, it's about being a part of. And it sounds like you're using, yes, your vision and your awareness, but you're also embodied in the whole essence of the person. And I can attest to the fact that um, you have drawn my own relatives, and you have drawn them in a way where their essence shows up. Sure, I could go in and we're going to do that in a second here, but I could go in and I could say, yeah, you've got that ear and you've got that nose and you've got that mouth, but the essence of the person shows up. And I feel that not everyone that starts in doing their mediumship for portrait expression, doing drawing and doing illustration, I think that's the most important thing they need to know, is to be in the experience of the spirit of the person. Like you said, it's a partnership,
Yeah,
as opposed to I have to draw that person, or I'm trying to make something look exactly like that other person, because
yes,
the person receiving it will know their their loved one. They'll know it. They'll know it viscerally, the same way you're giving it to us viscerally through the
mm,
energy that
yeah,
you're transferring while you're communicating with this media of pen, paper, whatever you're using, digital and otherwise. Can we show our audience an example
oh
using grandparents?
yeah. So yeah, we'll start with your grandfather. We'll
Sure.
just
As she's bringing this up to show you folks, I had found Monique by finding her on the internet doing this very thing of sketching for other people in a podcast that she was part of. And she's been in many podcasts. She's been published in the Psychic News. So she's quite adept at what she's doing. You can see that by the image she's sharing with us now. This is my grandpa. This is my maternal grandfather. And he is fabulous. I love him so much. He shows up almost every time that we do any practice exchanges, or I go to my own classes to keep my chops up, to keep myself as a strong and progressing medium. And he is almost always coming through. Here he is here. He is about 57 years old, we figured out in the picture that you see, the photograph. The photograph is a slide that has been scanned, so that's why there's little bits of fuzz on the picture. So there's a little distortion in the coloring due to it being an old slide, over 60 years old. This was taken in the photograph was taken in 1964. Monique drew this beautiful picture, and she's drawing this picture as she's talking about him. And as she said, this is something, right, Monique, that you said it's a tricky thing to actually be talking and giving evidence while you're doing it, but her evidence was right on. We did this several weeks ago. I'm not remembering the exact evidence, but I know for sure that what she was saying was correct. She did manage to perceive some evidence that he shared with me, which is one of my favorite photographs. Unfortunately, I don't have it here with me. It's over at my mom's place. It's a little black and white picture, and it's a picture of me sitting on my grandpa's lap and wearing his straw hat. I was about 4 years old, and she brought that in as evidence that there is a photograph with this information on it. And sure enough, there is, and it's very strong and at the front of my memory. So that was a great piece of evidence. And just for the sake of it here, I want to use my little arrow here to show you a few things. So the essence of my grandpa is here, the little smile in his eyes. I mean, he's smiling for a photograph, and sometimes taking our photograph isn't the easiest. So he's maybe a little stiffer in the photograph, but you can see he's got a twinkle in his eye, he's got a smile on. And the picture here shows that he has a nose that has a little bit of a curve to it. So she's shown that. The flare, she's picked that up. If you look at this ear here, it's identical to the ear over on this side of the photograph. So we know that she's getting accurate evidence in her illustration. The hairline goes down back up in the corner the same way this photo does, although it is styled a little differently here. So the one thing as a viewer, when you're receiving a picture from either a portrait artist, as is the case with Monique, or any spirit artists, to recognize the most important thing is the message that comes through and the essence. And because Monique is someone that goes into the depth and into the experience and immerses herself in the energy of that spirit as they work with her, she allows that, she embodies that. You can see the essence comes through in the character and the expression on the face, that you're capturing the nature of this person. Now, my grandpa had reading glasses, but he didn't need them probably when he was 57, or he didn't have them on the photo. I'm not certain about that, but drawing the glasses in did not take away from the fact that this is indeed my grandpa. So let's say hi to everybody. He's probably here with us now going, why are you showing me the picture? But she's done a fabulous job here with my grandpa. Move on to the next one, if you would, Monique.
Sure.
So this is my Nana. This is my grandpa's wife. This is my Nana. Now, again, same thing, 1964, the photograph, a slide. You can see my grandpa's shoulder there on the side. Monique drew this picture a little bit later in years. And so my grandmother lived to be 96 years old. So this is a picture of her. She does have quite a twinkle in her eye, especially when around me, because apparently I was her favorite, or one of her favorites. So I always had a good time with my grandma. I was very close with her, and that shows up in this picture, in this way here, in this photograph. And here you see her a little more serene and stoic. As she got older, she became a little more serious with things. But I do feel this captures her quite well. The cheekbones, the ears exact again. We see some of the hairline. We see the looseness of the hair. She used to put rollers in her hair. So yeah, Monique, this is fabulous. The evidence about our closeness and all the things that you said the day we spoke were fabulous. So show us some of the stuff that you're proud of from the past here that you've been able to discuss in the past. Please do.
Well, I'll just show a few examples that have been published, so I know they're safe to show here with permission. This, for example, is a drawing of when I was doing a reading for somebody from Montreal, a son. Father came through, father and mother, but this is father, and an idea of he recognizes father right away. And yes, father, as I'm sketching him, I could hear him say, "Give me a 5 o'clock shadow and a hairy chest." And yeah, my son laughed, his son laughed like that too, and said, absolutely. He said Dad had to shave at least twice a day, otherwise he would have a full beard by the end of the day. He said that's absolutely true. And then I went on to draw his mother. Mother came through showing me, as I sketched, a white rose. And he said, yes, he said, that's definitely Mom. And the white rose is, well, I put a white rose on her coffin at her funeral. So, and there was more evidence than that, but that's what I recall about this sketch here. It just amazes me that these people come through in these sketches, their personalities come through. And, you know, what I tell my audience is in demonstrations is, you know, I know how to draw an eye, but why that eye? I know how to draw a nose, but why that nose or that mouth? This is a reading for a 92-year-old man from Iran, and his father come through. Well, I was so pleased that he sent me this photograph to validate the sketch, because the medium, the evidence in the reading was correct, and he found this photograph. Somebody sent it to him from Iran, so he forwarded it to me, and you could see that this is the same man, but older in the sketch. Had come through with
You can feel the essence, right? You can feel that strength within him that shows up in the photograph as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the sketches are about usually about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how much. The first sketch in my readings is the first sketch is done before the client shows up, because spirit knows that they're coming. No question about it. So I start off 15 minutes before the client shows up. I'll just do a sketch and pick up information. We'll start that way. and we'll go from there.
And I
So
love that you say you start with the eyes, because obviously they say that expression, the eyes are the seat of the soul, right? So you get a lot of personality, character, and essence of the person by starting with the eyes. That makes perfect sense.
that's exactly true. And if you've ever seen somebody, not everybody does, but if you've had that experience, you'll see when somebody passes that the soul, the person is no longer there because you don't see them in the eyes. The eyes look, lifeless. So as I sketch, oh, I know I'm drawing an eye. I don't know whose eye, but suddenly, boom, I feel the personality in that eye, and I know that I've got them. I've got them. So anyway, sometimes spirit, I put out the intention to draw, in this case, for example, grandma. I'm asked to draw grandma, but as I put the pencil to paper, grandma doesn't want me to draw her. She wants me to draw what she was watching. And what she was watching was her granddaughter, whom I'm reading for, um, dicing up tomatoes, because I could see that this granddaughter, had gone to the garden and picked tomatoes. I could see the house, the garden, the car. I said, you brought the tomatoes into the house and started dicing them up. And I showed her the sketch. She goes, oh my God, that is me in my kitchen. She went home and had her son take a photograph of her in her kitchen. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. She was, grandma was watching her granddaughter cook one of grandma's favorite recipes, which I believe was salsa, if I'm right.
Mhm.
The next one is, the next one is a mother who comes through, reading for this woman here in Vancouver. Mother comes through older in this sketch. This is one of my earlier ones. Now, when it comes to sketching these people in spirit, they often come in younger than when they pass. You'll never see them sickly or ill in any way. They come through pristine, healthy, vibrant, and they come in at different ages. So this is a mother that comes through at this age, and then comes through at a much younger age. Same woman, but different age. And I ask the clients or recipients of the drawing, hold a photograph up to the sketch, because then you'll see it. You'll see clearly whether, because it's people are looking at the sketch and they have an image in their mind of what their loved one look at like, especially at the end of life, because that's when I last remember seeing my mom. Of course, there's memories, but so I get, when they look at the sketch and the photograph side by side, you can see it. So I'll just say that and move on. It doesn't matter what era of time, by the way. It really doesn't matter. They can come in from the 20s, the 1800s. I've drawn that with photographic evidence. So late 1800s. So this here is a great, that's 4 greats, grandfather who comes in a spirit portrait sketch and a reading, wishing his great great granddaughter a happy birthday by indicating the awareness of an electric fan she received for one of her birthday gifts on a hot summer day. It was a white fan, a little white fan. Now, when I initially I did the sketch, she knew who it was, but she couldn't take the evidence until later. And this happens often in mediumship too. A recipient of a reading may not quite remember a piece of evidence, but later I'll get a text or an email saying, oh, I remember now. I remember, that's true. I got a little white fan from a friend for my birthday. So she validated the evidence of a white fan, a little one that you put up to your face to keep you cool, and also of her great grandfather, which
I love this, because so often when you're giving a reading to someone and say the great grandfather comes in, the person's like, I don't know who they are, because they're not paying attention to their family, or they don't know about their legacy, or their lineage rather. And then the other thing is, people have this assumption that, well, I didn't know them, so why would they be coming, right? There's a large faction of people that believe that the people that are come are the only ones that care about them are the ones that they've had interaction with in the physical world. And I love this because this is proof you can go back as far as that spirit decides to come in from, right? The medium doesn't decide how far back we go. The spirit decides who's coming forward, the spirit intelligence. And you've proven that this person actually exists. It isn't the medium, pulling ideas out of thin air, right? There's actually proof here that there is a spirit that has come from the lineage further back and gives absolute evidence. The other thing I mentioned to you earlier when you showed me this was I really love this one in particular, but I felt it on the others as well, just not as strongly as this one, where I feel like you really bring the essence of the man forward. Now, being a medium myself, it's easier for me to pick that up from any illustration or drawing. And maybe some of our viewers are getting that too. But with this fellow, I really felt like it's like I could hear him breathing. It was like I could hear how he would breathe. It was like looking at this illustration, I can feel his dimensionality. That's probably the best way to put it, the dimensionality, which a photograph doesn't deliver. In this drawing, you get that dimensionality, and even though there's lots of lines in the texturing and stuff, and it's not a exactly thin line, those lines I think are what add the character, add the feeling, and like help it emerge from the actual paper itself. That's my 2 cents on it. I think it's a gorgeous shot. Yeah.
You're correct. You're absolutely correct. And the irony is, when I did this one in particular, without seeing the photograph, I thought, oh no, this is not a good one. I made a mistake. He couldn't possibly look like this. Oh, the drawing is far too loose to be recognizable. And then she sent me the photograph. Oh my God, it is indeed man, not only the same man, but you're right. You could feel the essence of this character, which is exactly why I say I am the tool, only the tool. It's the energy that flows through me that allows this tool to do its work. So it's quite fascinating. And one more example would be this one in particular. Again, a reading for a daughter. A father comes through, and you can see father there in the upper left-hand corner. As I sketched this, I got partway through the face. I mean, it looks exactly like him. And he told me, I could hear him speak to me, and he said, okay, that's it. Move on. So I got far enough that the daughter would recognize, and she did. She said, that's my dad. And I moved on to the next thing, which would be the tractor. And then again, move on. Okay, stop, go to the shed. Oh, okay, there's a pitchfork leaning up against the shed. Oh, move on. Okay, there's a lake and there's a boat. And oh, now I see the rocking chair. The recipient of the reading said, that's the very rocking chair that my wife, that my mother rocked me in as a baby. Wicker back, kind of an oaky colored wood, beautiful. And also the long grain of because it was on a farm, and uncut grass in the yard. You can see the high grass there. I knew Spirit was showing me, the father was showing me the kids running through that grass, because the grass wasn't, it was more of a rustic farm. So the kids would run through that. And at the end of all of this, at the end of drawing all of this, he stood in front of me, and I could see him with my third eye. He puts his hands out like that, and I heard him say, put your hands in mine, honey. And then that was it. That was the end of the reading. She took all of it was correct, and sent me this picture of her father. And honestly, I'm just as surprised as any other client when a photograph's sent, and that is the person. I'm just as surprised as anybody else, because once again, I'm merely just allowing. I'm allowing it to flow through me, like you've heard, poets or musicians or athletes talk about being in the zone, being in the moment. So I'm there with every single portrait that I've shown here. So I guess I could stop sharing and come back to you unless there's anything more.
Sure. No, that's great. Thank you. That was brilliant. Love that. I mean, that whole idea of blending with spirit so that you become a part of the energy is huge. And it's what makes any medium accurate. It's what makes any medium, puts them in a position where the spirit can bring the healing through the medium. So you are a medium that has a medium to work with. you work this way, right? But like you said, I love that you pointed out that it's a challenge to be doing the voice and the drawing. And that's probably why you often see the demonstration with a medium speaking and then a medium drawing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're so focused on getting the information out. When you're speaking, you're going through that one vehicle of expression, which is voice. When you're drawing, you're going through that one vehicle expression, which is your physiology and translating that information. So adding that other layer could be making it more difficult. So with practice, though, I love that you mentioned that with practice, a person could be present for both. And if you are really blended with spirit, why wouldn't we be able to be, right? Because honestly, you're just, they're using us, they're using and our bodies, our beings, our energy. Our body is energy. So there's the world's our oyster, right? There's so many ways spirit intelligence can move through us when we set ourselves down, when we practice blending with spirit, sitting in the power, trusting spirit, and honoring spirit first. We as mediums then can be there. And I love, again, like you said before, you learned that you weren't working for spirit, you were working with spirit. And I think that is really critical to understand. So, whatever anybody's process is, it'll be unique to them and the spirit communicators that are working with them.
That's right. Yeah. And trust, you use that word, that's very important, because you do learn to trust over time. And as you do, marvelous things happen. But as that minister in the spiritualist church said to me that day that I drew the first spirit portrait art, I drew that day an aunt, a grandmother, and a sister. Astounded. All 18 mediums that were in the class were cheering me on. It was marvelous. But after the third sketch, the minister turned around and winked at me and she said, "I think you just found your calling." And that's exactly how it happened. That's how it happened. From there, I just continued with the work, and I still do it today. And I'm retired now from television news, but to bring a spirit portrait art, my art, always been my passion, to merge it together with now another passion, mediumship, and merging them together to do this work. I am ever so grateful. I would have never have imagined in a million years that I would be doing this at this point, and so grateful that I am. I'll do it until the very end. I absolutely love it. And just trust the process. Honestly, that's my advice. Trust is a big thing, as you mentioned. Trust and basically, I think I have to say that the way I did it was feel into it. Just go inside and feel what your passion is. If you're wondering what it is you're supposed to do, wherever your passion lies, whatever gives you joy, that is the direction you're supposed to head. And letting go of old habits and old belief systems, I can tell you it's from experience, and many will tell you it's not an easy thing to do. So, but it can be done, and it takes time, and it'll lead you into amazing experiences. We're here for the experience. So, yeah.
You find that excitement and that passion that you're speaking of, right? That connection that just moves you through it, right? In the zone, as we would say, takes you out of time, even though you're still in time. That is the way to also release some of those old habits, to have that draw you toward it rather than trying to conform to the outlines of what your expectations were before. I think another important thing is when you look at portrait artists, just like listening to mediums, you want to be truly yourself. Spirit's going to use you as yourself. So even the drawings, you have all this background in portraiture from your training and your life experiences. Maybe someone else doesn't have that, but they could still do this work at whatever level the essence is able to connect with them. And spirit, you could even have an artisan guide come in and work with you, and suddenly now you could draw where you could never draw before, right? So there's such a range of motion. If this is something that's calling someone, I would highly recommend start practicing, and practice first. Would you recommend to practice first because you had experience going in, those of us that don't have experience going, would you recommend we practice a lot with our mediumship and our portraiture before we actually take on clients?
Well, especially
That's
if
a
they're,
different scenario than you, because you come in with all those chops, as I call them.
yeah, well, it does take practice, and people are happy to give a spirit portrait artist money for a proper reading and a spirit portrait, especially. It's kind of a unique experience. There are many times where I'll hold up a sketch and they just don't expect that. I can assure you, it's like, whoa, there's grandma, so, or there's dad, or there's my husband. So yeah, it is because of my background as an artist, and I've been doing it all my life. But when I first began, I started to search out those because I knew about in my work, I knew what a graphic designer was, an animator, special effects. That's what I did. But I had never even heard of a spirit portrait artist. And yeah, and somebody told me that as I was practicing mediumship. Uh, More than one medium said to me, spirit portrait art is very unique, Monique, very unusual and not common. Oh, really? Okay. So I was happy to do it because I could incorporate my art in this newfound skill that I had of mediumship. But I did search out others to learn. I wanted to know, what is spirit portrait art? And in that process, whether it be virtual online or even here in BC, I would meet them and ask them about it, or even pay them to give me a reading so I had a better understanding. And I wanted to hear their story, not so much to get the reading, but find out what happened to them. How did you arrive here? Did you go through what I did, or am I the only one? I wanted to hear their stories. And uh, a lot of them told me that there's several of them that told me they couldn't even draw a stick man if they tried, but they were guided to do this through their higher selves or their spiritual guides. They felt like I did, that they were meant to do something. They had to do something, and they were guided to try. And like I mentioned earlier, it's very common for them to be told to start with their left hand, because that's where their non-dominant hand, because that's where they learn to let go of control, especially if you're not a professional artist, or a painter or something like that with skill. You know when to let go of control and let your feeling take over. Well, a layman wouldn't necessarily know how to do that. So even Arthur Finley College will talk about something like that. I was told about that, where you start with your non-dominant hand, and then from there, with practice, you move over to the right hand. And a lot of these spirit portrait artists, they actually teach now. They teach. That's how they started. They told me that's how they learned, that's how they began, and now that's how they teach. So yeah,
It is
but
important. And I mean, obviously, it always comes down to connecting with our spirit family, visitors, guides, and it's reliant on allowing them to guide us through this process of unfolding this gift. And so the practice comes from learning how the whole niche works in terms of the expectation. It is helpful to know that. Am I understanding that's where you're going with what you've just said here? Have I priced it down well enough?
yeah, exactly. And uh, everybody has to start from somewhere, and I did too. It's just that I had all this history with portraits. And why is it that my favorite thing to do in all the world was portraiture? I'm a painter, although I could paint, but if I would work all day in television news doing artwork, and then for relaxation, I would go do, well, I call it still life, but it's drawing. I'd go to these classes or these open studios where you could draw the human body. I love drawing the human body. It was my way of relaxing. I've always had that passion for faces the human body, and it's translated into this now. So I've had that background. I was lucky that way. Um, Others maybe they had the mediumship, but they had to train themselves how to use the art. So it depends on your background. Everybody's different.
Right.
So yeah, and yeah,
Are you teaching this to anyone? Are
uh,
you holding classes or circles where someone can be a part of this process of unfoldment?
I do have I do run a circle every a mediumship practice circle for those who want to practice their mediumship. But I encourage in that circle on Thursday mornings Pacific time. They're from all over the world, and it's just, it's not a huge group. I like everybody, ask everybody to participate. So I give them so many minutes each to practice, and um, I'm of a believer as an artist that everybody has a passion and a gift for something, especially when they're in their mediumship. I have several spirit artists. Some of them are spirit portraits, some of them are spirit artists. They practice in that circle. I encourage them to. Some of them love trance mediumship. So if we have a little extra time, if the group is smaller, they'll practice trance mediumship in that group. Some of them are inspirational speakers. They allow information to come through them as they speak. Um, there's all different modes, but as long as they are connecting with that God source energy, that source energy that flows through us, uh, if they want to use their passion, their skill to develop their mediumship that way, that's what that circle is all about. Yeah. So,
So if someone wants to get a hold of you, where do they go for that?
oh, okay. Well, I am on Facebook, Monique Painchaud, Spirit Portrait Artist. Not spirit artist, but spirit portrait artist in particular, Monique Painchaud, and Facebook page there, both business and private. You can find me there. And my email, which I believe would be posted here, wouldn't
Yes,
it?
I will. It'll all be listed below. Yeah.
hotbreadmp@yahoo.ca. And you can get readings this way. Or if you have any questions, they can be answered that way too. I do know of people who do teach spirit portrait art. I do know of some that do teach it, so I could steer them in that direction, whether it be teaching, having classes, or actually circles where you can practice. So if whatever it is that you do know now, if you're practicing spirit art or spirit portrait art, you can go online and practice in these group circles that happen every week, or take classes. So I myself prefer to do, not teach. So I love to do readings, demonstrations, platform demonstrations, things like that.
And listeners, if you are interested, LILYDALE also has winter classes, not necessarily about portrait painting, but remember to look online for the winter classes. But next summer, we have a few portrait artists, at least one coming in. So you may want to look for him. So there's opportunities out there to learn how to do this, and check out lilydaleassembly.org if you want to see what's happening in terms of either evidentiary training, platform mediumship, like I'll be doing classes on that, or if you want to do the portraiture. So remember Lilydale Assembly when you're doing your research as well. Monique, this has been fantastic. I have enjoyed sitting through this with you. Again, I'm very grateful for the work that you did for me, the mediumship you did with my grandmother and my Nana. So that was awesome. And thank you for letting me share that. And beautiful. I look forward to connecting with you again for maybe even another talk sometime. Maybe we can find a way to get you to do a demonstration. If not, in the meantime, listeners, you know how to get a hold of her so you can have your own demonstration of how this works. Monique uses pencil as well as digital representation. So you'll be able to get it digitally sent to you. She does send you a copy. Monique, is there anything else you want to say before we close out today?
I just want to leave you with the advice once again to follow your passion, because everybody is here for a reason. And if you have a particular passion, whether it be art, music, dance, sports, whatever it is, you're meant to go in that direction. So I would advise to follow that route because that's what you're meant to do. So I'll leave you with that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Monique. And listeners, we're grateful to have you here. Be sure to make your comments below. Anything you want to ask, anything you want to comment about. I didn't mention it earlier, but certainly you know the drill. So we thank you for joining us, and do join us again real soon. From the Medium's Porch, from Kathleen and Monique, have a great day.
Bye.